This is Keontae Blue, the 5-star freshman out of Chicago, Illinois, who, like every other prospect, had dreams of making it to the NBA. And his dreams one step closer with his commitment to Villanova. Villanova is a very successful program in the midst of rebuilding, and well, Keontae didn't have dreams of winning the national championship, but he wanted to use this university as a stepping stone to get one step closer to the NBA. But in order to reach that ultimate goal, he's got to put in the work, and that work starts now. His college season will begin in Austin, Texas, as he makes his freshman debut against the Texas Longhorns, who are one of the top-ranked teams in the country. And while Villanova isn't highly ranked themselves, with the signing of Keontae Blue, the highly touted freshman, they figured this will be a good matchup to open up their season. Now, of course, Keontae can't do it by himself. He's going to be relying on the veteran leadership of his backcourt in Alex Kemp and Jared Poa. And on the other side, Texas features two of the top prospects in this upcoming NBA draft, and Amari Rice and Tyus Williams. Yeah, Keontae was going to have his hands full to start off his career, but he's up for the challenge. Listen, when you're a 5-star prospect, everybody's depending on you to make a splash early. And speaking of making a splash early, Texas did just that, as Keontae would struggle out the gate going up against some of the elite talent that Texas had. See, I didn't really fill you guys in on Keontae's playing style. He wasn't really known as much of a shooter at all in high school. He relied solely on his athleticism. I mean, he shot up to 6'8", 205 by his senior year in high school. His high school coaches didn't really tell him or work on his game that much. Texas would take full advantage of Villanova's lackluster start to the game, as they would come out firing on all cylinders. I mean, these are some of the best players in the nation that they're going against, so this is a good measuring scale for Keontae and Villanova to see where they rank at. And as we can see, Keontae needs to immediately hit the gym, work on that jumper, as well as he needs to hit the weight room, as he was getting bullied down in the paint by Amari Rice. And if Keontae wants to make the NBA, he's got a long way to go, as being a 5-star prospect isn't going to get him drafted. But what is going to get him drafted is his athleticism. It became quite obvious that Villanova wasn't going to win this game, as Texas was straight up bullying them. Keontae was getting outplayed in the post, the guards were getting outplayed by Texas guards, and they were showboating all throughout this game. Hey, if nothing else, this game exposed Keontae's weaknesses early on and showed him what he has to work on if he wants to have a chance to go pro after one season here at Villanova. And after a lackluster performance, Villanova will fall by 18 to Texas to open up the season. And obviously, Keontae did not have the start he wanted to for his college career, but of course, he'll have a chance to make up for it in the next game. Homecoming. Keontae will be returning to his home state to face the University of Illinois for the first time since he left high school. And well, while Champaign is about 2 hours away from Chicago, the feeling was still the same. He'll also be facing against two former teammates of his in Tevin Porter and Robert Sessions. These three used to play AAU basketball together in Chicago, and they weren't excited when Keontae decided to take his talents out of state. Better believe there was no love lost in this matchup, as Keontae would come out the gate booming. He had family in attendance, so this game meant everything to him. Early on in the season, there was a chance for him to make a statement that, hey, I'm not a fluke, bro. I really belong on this college level with the rest of them top prospects. He came out this game showing off his playmaking vision, and the rest of the team followed suit. Hey, it's amazing what happens when you don't give up on an athlete after one bad game, and that's what it was. Just one bad game in Keontae's mind. For the rest of the season, he was on go mode. He already knows what it was like to play poorly and hear it from the press. So this game, he took out all his frustrations, and after this dominant performance, he immediately shot up to top 10 in the upcoming mock draft, as he will put up 25, 8 rebounds, and 3 blocks. And Villanova will go on to get the impressive win on the road. Keontae will prove his worth, and now Villanova takes their talents back to the crib. Story takes us back to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where Villanova plays their home opener against crosstown rival Temple. And Keontae has his first chance to perform in front of his home crowd. The excitement was at an all-time high to see the 5-star freshman make his home debut, and he came out a little jittery. I'm talking about missing jumpers, and just indecision with the basketball would lead to turnovers early on in the game, and he would get a little out of character, not to mention his free throw struggles would continue, as Keontae will be one of the worst free throw shooters in college basketball, which is just not a good look. And when you have scouts watching your every move. Right now, Keontae's bread and butter is in the paint. He didn't have much of a jumper to rely on, so he relied on interior scoring as well as playmaking to get him through. And Keontae was a very impressive passer for his size. That may be something to watch out for going forward, as Villanova win this game by 14. The freshman put up a near triple-double in an impressive performance, and it seems like Keontae and Villanova are well on their way. Oh, but this story isn't done yet. Story takes us to Rivalry Week, Storrs, Connecticut, where Villanova will go on to face UConn, the #1 team in the nation. And this team is deep. Hey, both of these teams have won multiple national championships in the last decade, so the rivalry really needs no explanation. But as to make matters worse, UConn has a star-studded lineup, as they feature 4 NBA prospects, nearly touting a prospect at every single position on the court, and it would take a complete team effort for Villanova to stay in this game. I mean, off the rip, they were already toying with the guards in the backcourt, and this team is so crazy, they had the guards throwing lobs to each other, bruh. Keontae and Villanova were shocked as UConn came out the gates blitzing them, and for the first time in his college career, Keontae was getting shadowed by a real lockdown defender. UConn assigned signed for Sam Stewart to shadow Keontae throughout the entire game and cause problems, and that's exactly what he did. And UConn would cause problems on the offensive end as they were just proved to be too big, too fast, too skilled, and too talented. Frustrations mounted up early for Villanova as UConn would take a 17-point lead into halftime, leaving Villanova to scratch their heads and wonder, how do we fix this, man? They felt like they needed a spark coming out of halftime, so coach would draw up a play for Keontae to get open off a lob to get this team going. But as any great team would do, UConn had a counter and were ready. And Villanova was just stunned as Keontae would be boxed. There were a lot of NBA scouts watching this game, and Keontae did not have a great showing, leaving a lot of scouts to scratch their heads wondering if the beginning of his season was a fluke. And hey, even though they were down double digits for the majority of the game, Keontae had to remind himself, listen, I got a future ahead of me. I got to think about the NBA. I got to do something in this game that sets me apart from the rest, even when facing adversity. And that's exactly what he did. Look, it was clear and evident that UConn was dominating this game, but Keontae continued to show his playmaking ability, so much so, coach would put Keontae in at point guard and shift Alex Kemp down to the 2 and Jared Pollard to the 3, and while Kemp didn't take too kindly that, Keontae could see his future ahead of him. He realized this could be the decision that changes everything for him. So, with about 5 minutes left in his game, Keontae will run point. For the first time in his young career, he's bringing the ball up the court like a real guard. I mean, hey, this was a chance for Keontae to reinvent himself as a real point guard. And his first pass at point guard was a bad one, and it led to a UConn transition dunk. But of course, that didn't stop Keontae in his confidence as he would continue to show off his playmaking and vision. At a 6'8" size, potential for Keontae at point guard was through the roof. He was already a great defender, and now with his size, he could bully the guards at his position and become nearly unstoppable in the college game. But in order to take that next step, he really needs to work on his free throw game. I mean, it's already bad enough that he doesn't have a consistent jump shot, but the free throws are supposed to be bread and butter. It's supposed to be a way to earn your hard work, and he can't do that. But what is clear that he can do is find the open man on his team, and his teammates were excited about the transition for him to point guard. We know that he can't shoot, but we know what he can do, and that's find his teammates, get rebounds, and defend at a high level. UConn will run away with this game clear as day. They made it obvious as to why they're the #1 team in the nation, while Villanova is currently struggling in their season. It was the first time in Keontae's career that he faced an elite defense, and while he had some struggles, he had some bright spots during his game where he showed his playmaking and his ability to impact the game without being an elite jump shot shooter. Villanova would take one of the worst losses of the season, losing by 15 on the road to UConn. Hey, you win some, you lose some, right? Keontae's stat line looks pretty decent, and while he had struggles at the free throw line, his vision was off the charts, and the coaching staff decided they would let Keontae start at point guard for the next game. And this would be the beginning of PG Key. Keontae would spend the rest of the season as Villanova's starting point guard, and there was a newfound excitement in Philadelphia. The fans were already excited that the team signed this 5-star prospect, but now that he's running the show, this team is looking much more fluid with him at the helm. Man, with his size at this position, he proved to be dominant in this game against Providence. It was his first time starting at point guard, and he was already looking like a natural. Keontae was usually much more reserved, but now his confidence is oozing throughout his game as we're seeing much more highlight plays. He was putting on a straight show for the Villanova fans at home, proving why he should be a lottery pick in this upcoming draft. Keontae even received a standing ovation at one point in the game, man. It was crazy. As far as the scouts, they were scouting him initially as a power forward, but now with the switch to point guard, this has the potential to skyrocket Keontae all the way up the mock drafts. In the game against DePaul, he showed out his full arsenal. The scouts got a chance to see his defensive tenacity, his willingness to be able to guard the other team's best player, recover, and get back on offense and be able to deliver dimes to his teammates and set them up in positions to be able to score. Keontae was diming so much, he had to make sure his hand was alright, bro. He felt like his nail was about to fall off the way he was moving that ball. But the one thing that has not changed with the switch to point guard is the free throw line struggles, bro. I'm telling you, it's going to make it more magnified now that he's a point guard that he can't consistently knock down free throws. And despite putting on a show for the fans, the scouts were a little hesitant because of his free throw shooting. I mean, between his free throws and his lack of a consistent jump shot, those things could potentially keep him out of the top 10 in this upcoming draft. That didn't stop Keontae from showing why he deserves to be the point guard of this team, as Villanova will go on to win back-to-back games. No matter what happens to Villanova this season, Keontae proved that he deserves to be a point guard on the next level. Final game. Villanova was not good enough to make March Madness, so this was Keontae's last chance to prove himself to NBA scouts. The last game of the season takes us to Omaha, Nebraska, where Villanova will face off against Creighton, which featured one of the best players in college basketball, and Derek Fisher II. Derek is regarded as the best point guard prospect in all of college basketball. He's about 6'5", 200 pounds, and he poses a real threat for Keontae. This was one of the most hyped up matchups of the season, and it couldn't have come at a better time as both Keontae and Derek were ready to enter their names in the NBA draft in just a few months, but tonight they had a showdown. And it didn't disappoint. Keontae came out the gates showing off his playmaking ability. He's already established himself as one of the best playmaking prospects in this upcoming draft, but what they didn't know, he's been slowly but surely adding the mid-range game to his arsenal. With that and his playmaking ability and just the straight up size and bully ability in the paint, how could you not want to take Keontae with your draft pick? He straight up put on a show in the first half against Creighton, his last collegiate game, proving why he deserves to go lottery in his upcoming draft. It may have took the whole season, but his confidence is now through the roof. Even with Keontae balling out, that didn't mean Derek Fisher II didn't have his game as well. The two went back and forth. Keontae had a struggle in the second half, and Derek Fisher II picked up on that, diving for loose balls, showing a little bit more hustle. And hey, we already know that Keontae can't shoot, and that's something Derek specializes in. And at this point in the game, it was tight. It was close-knit. The scouts are looking to see which one of these point guards can lead their team to a fantastic finish. And right now, it's not looking like that's Keontae. Derek Fisher had this man on clamps, and on the offensive side of the ball, Keontae could not find his jump shot. His saving grace was on the defensive side of the ball, as he would keep his team in the game with clutch defensive plays, as well as timely offensive buckets. It was pretty obvious that this game was going to have to go down to the wire to decide his winner. But Creighton and Derek Fisher II were not going down without a fight. I mean, when you match his jump shot with his pro-level ability to attack the basket, it left Keontae and Villanova in frustration. Keontae would pick up some frustration fouls late in the game, putting Derek Fisher on the line where he would knock down his free throws, and that's something we all know Keontae can't do. The game remained tight with about 2 minutes to go, and Derek Fisher would hit a clutch jump shot in the mid-range. Keontae would come right back at him and bully ball him to an and one to keep the game close. Hey, the game is on the line. Everything matters. Scouts are watching. NBA teams are ready to see which point guard they want to bank their future on. Now is not the time to come up short in the big-time moments. But as the story is told, Keontae would hit the free throw line, bricking his and one, and Derek Fisher II would take over the later stages of this game. You hit a clutch big-time three in Keontae's face, and what happens after this is embarrassing. Derek Fisher II would take Keontae straight to the basket, feeling the contact, and would rise up, power it right on top of his head. Man, you hate to see this view of Keontae or Villanova fan, as Creighton would dominate the last stretches of the game and win by 7, leaving Keontae and Villanova with the loss to end their season. Even in the loss, Keontae put up an impressive stat line to close out his freshman season, and his focus would now shift to the NBA. His future, his body of work and his resume were already complete. Now he had to prove to the scouts that he had the work ethic behind the scenes to make the necessary jumps that they asked him so he can go higher in the draft. Even with Keontae not being able to knock down consistent jump shots, the free throw line remained the most important part of his deficiencies, because what's the point of going to the basket if you can't knock down free throws? We're days away from the NBA draft, and Keontae was invited to the NBA draft combine in Chicago, Illinois, where he saw a lot of familiar faces that he saw throughout his freshman season. Old friends, old foes, but everybody had the same goal in this draft combine uniform. They're trying to figure out where they're going in the draft, trying to make a stake that they deserve to be picked higher than the other man. Keontae had worked on his free throws so much in the months before the combine that he actually showed. He hit a couple of free throws during his combine game. Combined with his playmaking ability, it was clear and evident that Keontae was bound to be a lottery pick. Keontae would leave the combine in his hometown city, and in just a couple of weeks, he'll be hearing his name called in the NBA draft. With his time in Villanova coming to an end, Keontae will leave town and begin his pre-draft workouts. We're just days away from the NBA draft, and the mock drafts have him going as high as number 8 to the Washington Wizards, as some have him going as low as number 15 to the Atlanta Hawks. His agent makes sure he worked out with every lottery team, and for Keontae, he really had no dream destination. His goal was almost here, the NBA. It didn't matter where he was drafted at, as long as he made it.
With the 17th pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select
Keontae Blue, point guard, Villanova. That's right. Keontae would slip all the way to number 17 in the draft, bypassing the lottery completely. All the teams he worked out for decided to pass up on him, and one of the few teams he didn't work out for decided to pick him up. He had a chance to play with one of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest, and join one of the greatest franchises in NBA history. And after surviving summer league, training camp, and preseason, Keontae earned his spot on his Los Angeles Lakers team, which had NBA title hopes, and it all began in Denver on opening night. The biggest moment of Keontae's life. He's set to check into his first game, and how would he perform? Well,